When was the last time you seriously considered your prostate health? I'm not just talking about blood tests, but an intimate part of your routine that most men over 60 avoid mentioning out of embarrassment or simply the weight of silence: masturbation. For many, this word evokes guilt, myths, or memories of youth. But today, as a doctor and longevity specialist, I need to be brutally honest. Self-managed sexual activity, or masturbation, after age 60 is not a luxury, a whim, or something to be ashamed of. It is, scientifically speaking, a functional and fundamental necessity for your well-being, for your heart health, and, crucially, for preventing painful conditions like chronic prostatic inflammation. I am Dr. Elena Castillo, and I have dedicated my life to understanding and improving the quality of life of my patients, especially in this golden stage of life. I know that discussing these topics requires courage and openness, and that's why this channel is a safe haven where there is no judgment. I've heard from hundreds of men, valuable and strong like yourself, who carry the burden of the myth that it doesn't matter anymore, or that it's only for young men, without understanding that sexual inactivity in old age has very real and dangerous physical consequences. But what exactly is the healthy frequency that protects your prostate and maintains your energy? Is there a real risk in doing it too much, or, worse, in not doing it at all? Today, we're going to break down, with medical clarity, without embarrassment, and with information from serious studies at institutions like Harvard, the exact formula that protects your gland, improves your sleep, balances your hormones, and replenishes your energy. If you want to ensure that your body's engine, the one that has taken you so far, continues to run strong and without inflammation, this message is vital and could transform not only your physical health, but also your self-esteem and emotional well-being. Let's delve deeper into the prostate's protective mechanism. The prostate is a vital gland that produces an essential part of seminal fluid. If this fluid remains stagnant for extended periods, that is, if ejaculation becomes too infrequent, the gland can experience chronic congestion. Imagine a river that doesn't flow. The water stagnates. With the prostate, this stagnation leads to increased internal pressure and facilitates the proliferation of microcalcifications or non-bacterial inflammation, which we know as prostatitis. This is why large-scale studies, such as the famous Harvard Men's Health Cohort study, not only recommend but also establish a minimum protective frequency. This frequency not only relieves congestion, but also promotes healthy cell turnover in the gland and acts as a true internal flush, reducing exposure to potential carcinogens. Understanding this is crucial for demystifying the use and wear approach and embracing the concept of use and maintenance. Maintaining ejaculatory function is, therefore, an active health and prevention strategy. The famous Harvard study, after decades of follow-up, suggests that achieving ejaculatory activity of approximately 21 times or more per month significantly reduces the risk of developing prostate problems, including cancer. This isn't about a rigid number, but rather a concept of consistent regularity. Consider the case of Carlos, the 65, who came to my office with a diagnosis of chronic prostatitis. Carlos had convinced himself that, at his age, inactivity was the norm, or that it was a source of unnecessary wear and tear. He experienced frequent nighttime awakenings, a weak urinary flow, and a persistent feeling of incomplete emptying. His prostate was chronically inflamed due to congestion, accumulating stagnant fluid that irritated the gland and pressed on the urethra. His body, subtly but firmly, was sending him a clear message. It needs maintenance and flow. When your doctor doesn't ask you about this fundamental aspect of your health, they're missing a key piece of the male longevity puzzle. Regular drainage reduces local inflammation. By implementing a consistent drainage routine, Carlos not only improved his urinary flow, but his need to get up at night decreased dramatically. The gland became decongested, and the inflammation subsided. This figure of 21 times a month, which the Harvard study presents, is not a non-negotiable sexual quota or pressure, but a biological maintenance threshold. The important thing is not whether it is achieved through masturbation or sex with a partner, but ensuring a steady flow. The key is to adjust the frequency to the stage of life and maintain a regularity that feels natural and healthy. For men between 60 and 70 years old, the recommendation is to maintain this activity about 2 to 3 times a week. In the 70s and 80s, 1 to 2 times a week is optimal, and even for those over 80, ensuring at least once a week is an act of preventative care and vitality, not wear and tear. It is a reminder that the body is designed to function and flow. However, and this is where we must apply the wisdom of balance, excess can be just as harmful as abstinence. We've talked about maintenance and flow, but where is the line that crosses into depletion and deficiency? This is the case of Miguel, a 28-year-old who, driven by stress and digital overstimulation, had normalized the routine of masturbating 2 or even 3 times a day. He thought it was harmless, a simple release of energy, but his body was paying a very high biological price. Semen is a nutritionally dense substance, rich in essential minerals such as zinc, selenium, and magnesium, vital micronutrients for testosterone synthesis, immune function, and cellular energy. By depleting his reserves at this rate, Miguel was forcing his body into constant production without time for replenishment. He came to my office with chronic fatigue that sleep didn't alleviate, and his tests showed critically low zinc levels and free testosterone lower than expected for his age. Excessive drainage had emptied its biological reservoirs. This constant draining not only depleted his zinc reserves, a crucial mineral for over 300 enzymatic processes, including immune defense and hormone regulation, but also forced his prostate to overwork without the rest or nutrients necessary for cellular regeneration. His body, in a state of deficiency, diverted energy from immune function to try to maintain production. Miguel not only felt fatigued, but his susceptibility to minor infections increased significantly, counteracting the benefit of strengthening white blood cells that we discussed. The solution was simple but required discipline. Drastically reduce the frequency to a maximum of 3 times per week and focus on intensive micronutrient replenishment. When we achieved this balance, not only did his hormone levels stabilize, but his chronic fatigue disappeared and his sleep quality improved dramatically. Proper flow, based on health and need, is always the way. Excessive emptying is an act of biological self-drainage. But returning to the essential benefits of balanced function, let's talk about how this process acts as a true cardiovascular exercise, an internal gym for our blood vessels. When arousal and climax are reached, the body experiences an intense vasomotor response. The arteries dilate, the heart rate increases, blood flows vigorously, and this isn't just momentary pleasure, it's a gentle aerobic workout. This type of exercise helps strengthen the endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels, by promoting the release of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the body's most powerful natural vasodilator. By improving arterial elasticity and circulation, we reduce the strain on the heart and optimize the delivery of oxygen and nutrients at the cellular level. This improved circulation has direct and profound consequences for managing metabolic diseases, especially type 2 diabetes. Damaged or stiff blood vessels are a hallmark of insulin resistance, and regular sexual activity helps reverse that stiffness. Enter the story of Antonio, a 68-year-old man who struggled with persistent glucose spikes despite strictly adhering to his medical regimen. He was one of my most revealing cases regarding how intimacy affects blood chemistry. Antonio discovered, quite unexpectedly, that regular orgasms significantly increased his insulin sensitivity. What Antonio demonstrated to me, and what science supports, is that this improvement wasn't psychological, but purely physiological. The prolonged act not only reduced his chronic stress, a major enemy of insulin, but the sustained increase in blood flow, which is only achieved by maintaining arousal beyond the initial 5 minutes, maximized nitric oxide production. His cardiologist noted a visible reduction in the stiffness of his aorta. And this brings us directly to our number 1 golden rule: timing. An ejaculation that occurs in less than 10 minutes, while it relieves momentary pressure, is superficial. It doesn't allow the prostate gland to empty properly. Think of the prostate as a sponge. It needs time and deep rhythmic contractions to squeeze out all the stagnant fluid. This is crucial. So, if time, golden rule 1, is the driving force behind our circulatory and prostate health, lubrication, golden rule 2, is the guarantee of our longevity and physical comfort. Ignoring the realities of aging is the most common mistake. As the years go by, our bodies change dramatically. Think about the skin, our first line of defense. With the natural decline in estrogen and testosterone, the dermis and epidermis thin. They become less elastic and, crucially, less able to self-lubricate. Many older couples assume that dryness is just a nuisance. I tell them it's a warning sign. When friction occurs dry, on already delicate and atrophic skin, it doesn't just cause discomfort. We're talking about micro-tears, open doors to infection. And this is where the science of geriatric sexual health is unequivocal. Always use lubricant. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter how aroused you initially feel. Lubrication is insurance against injury. It's respect for the fragility of your mature body. This rule isn't an aesthetic choice, but a public health necessity. Consider the case of Pedro, who, due to ignored dryness, developed chronic balanitis. But today, I want to focus on the damage that comes from the hand, not the skin. The golden rule, 3 part is, avoid the deadly grip, the excessively tight grip. It's a common mistake driven by performance anxiety. When you use brutal, constant pressure, you're not only stressing the vascular tissue, but you're also exerting a destructive force on the delicate sensory receptors of the penis, the Meissner and Pacinian corpuscles. These are the messengers of pleasure. Repeated and excessive compression can permanently desensitize them. The nerve, like an electrical wire, loses its protective coating and its ability to transmit the signal. This is why many older men report that they no longer feel anything or need almost painful stimulation to achieve ejaculation. The case of Pedro, a 64-year-old patient, perfectly illustrates this. He came to my office desperate. Pedro confessed that for decades he had believed that more force equaled more pleasure, or at least a greater guarantee of response. He used his hand as a kind of gag, a performance tool, and this created a vicious cycle. The strong hand caused desensitization, and the desensitization compelled him to use even more force. We had to retrain his hand. The principle is simple. The skin is a membrane of pleasure, not a tough leather. We must treat it with the delicacy we would give to antique silk. Stimulation should be tactile and sensory, not compressive. I taught Pedro to focus on temperature, the texture of the lubricant, the rhythm, and above all, to reduce the pressure to the point where the hand merely follows the movement, without squashing the tissue. This change is vital to allow those delicate sensory receptors to recover and send clear messages of pleasure back to the brain. If they feel pain, they are using too much force. Pleasure should be gentle. We must redefine our relationship with our own bodies. They are not machines, but delicate systems of chemical and electrical responses. Letting go of brute force allows us not only to regain sensitivity, but also to improve the quality of orgasms. But let's return to the central point that concerns us today: the specific technique for chronic prostatitis and how we can ensure that the gland empties more efficiently. Ejaculation is the natural drainage, but it is often not enough. The case of Francisco, a 70-year-old gentleman, is very illustrative. Francisco reported a constant feeling of heaviness and inflammation. Even after sexual activity, he felt that something was being retained. We taught him the assisted massage method right at the moment of climax. The key is not continuous friction, but controlled and strategic pressure. For Francisco, this meant a radical change. What I prescribed was to use gentle masturbation as a vehicle to reach climax. But right before orgasm, firm but gentle pressure is applied to the perineum, right between the scrotum and the anus. This is a supportive massage to aid drainage, not a painful squeeze. This helped Francisco release the residual fluid that ejaculation alone hadn't managed to expel. The feeling of heaviness and the swelling disappeared within weeks, but efficient drainage is only part of the equation. If we want the gland to recover and function optimally in the long term, we need to give our body the right building blocks and adequate protection. This is where nutrition plays a starring role. acting as a chemical scaffold for cellular recovery and inflammation reduction. Let's first consider circulation and nitric oxide production, essential for vascular health, which is critical for delivering nutrients and oxygen to the inflamed gland. We need precursors like L-arginine. We find it in simple, accessible foods that we can incorporate into our daily diet. A handful of walnuts or almonds is an excellent source. These small changes, made consistently, make a noticeable difference in pelvic blood flow. Now, let's move on to a crucial mineral, zinc. The prostate is the organ that stores the most zinc in the entire male body, and this mineral is actively lost during ejaculation. If we have chronic inflammation or frequent ejaculations, the zinc requirement increases dramatically. Zinc deficiency is directly linked to prostate inflammation and decreased sperm quality. How do we replenish it? The most potent source is oysters, of course, but they aren't always practical. Excellent daily options include lean red meats, pumpkin seeds, and legumes. It's vital to ensure that this essential nutrient is available for tissue repair. And last but not least, we have the defense against cellular damage, antioxidants. We need a constant molecular cleanup brigade. In this area, lycopene is crucial for the prostate. It's what gives tomatoes and watermelons their deep red color. But here's a key point that's often overlooked. For the body to effectively absorb and utilize it in prostate tissue, lycopene needs heat. Cooking tomatoes, for example, or incorporating natural tomato sauce or concentrated paste into your meals, releases its protective power, making it much more bioavailable. A simple glass of tomato juice with a drizzle of olive oil can work wonders if consumed regularly. Another crucial mineral is selenium, which works hand in hand with vitamin E. Selenium is vital for protecting prostate cells against oxidative stress, and it's surprisingly easy to obtain. It's found in high concentrations in Brazil nuts. 1 or 2 a day are enough to meet your needs, and also in tuna and eggs. The combination of these 3 pillars, optimal circulation, robust zinc reserves, and antioxidant defense, creates a solid biological foundation for pelvic health. However, sometimes the challenge isn't just chemical repair, but physical stimulation, especially when the body faces neurological or motor limitations that hinder regular sexual function. Consider patients who, in addition to prostate or erectile challenges, manage conditions like Parkinson's disease. This is where we can explore assistive tools. We've explored the path to prostate health, understanding that it's built on a solid biological foundation, optimizing circulation, ensuring robust zinc reserves as a key cellular protector, and the antioxidant defense provided by powerful allies like bioavailable lycopene and selenium. I'd love to know, which of these fundamental pillars will you integrate first into your daily routine to notice a tangible difference? Share your intentions and questions in the comments. If you find science applied to your well-being helpful, I cordially invite you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so we can continue learning together, and share this knowledge with those who need it. Thank you so much for your trust and for joining me on this journey. With love and the promise of greater holistic health, I bid you farewell. I'm Dr. Elena Castillo.